So I'm going to talk through some of the blog that has gone out this morning, just talking really about some of the things that are going on in the world at the moment, and something that is having quite a significant impact on many of us for very different reasons. So the theme this month has been around our values, our needs, and our sense of purpose, our purpose in life. And it's something that comes up a lot. It's something that comes up a lot in conversations with clients. It comes up on Thrive when we're working with people as a group, but also it just comes up in day-to-day life. It is one of those things that just runs through everything that we do and how we see things and how we experience things. So it's been the theme this month. For those of you who follow the Facebook page, every morning we have had a quote or a positive affirmation to start the day, and all of those have been themed around our values, our needs, and our purpose. And some of them have been really thought-provoking and given us a real opportunity to start the day with that. Just thinking things through of things that are important to us and where we're going to put our time and energy in the day. So our values are our principles or standards of behaviour. It's what we judge to be important, what we judge to be important for us as individuals, but also what we judge to be important in life. There are no values that are more important than others, but we will have our own values that we feel are more important than others. It's a very personal choice around how we come or how we arrive to having those values as being important to us. They'll be based on our personal experiences, they'll be based on our upbringing, they will have been influenced by family members as we have grown up, and then really shaped by our own experiences as we've got older. So those are our values, and we will have our own hierarchy of values, but there isn't a societal hierarchy of values, although as a society, as a world, we do have, that generic what is important in life, what we value as society. So our needs are something that we feel that is essential. So it's more than something that we want, it's something that we feel is really key. It's really key to our sense of fulfillment, or really key to our sense of happiness and what we want from life. It's more than a want, it's a need. And you'll have seen the Maslow hierarchy of needs. There's a Barrett's hierarchy of values and needs. So there's lots of information and things out there where people have researched this. You've got Tony Robbins and his 6 human needs of what he feels most humans are looking for to gain that fulfillment, to have fulfillment in life. So we've got the values that underpin what we judge, the behaviour that we judge that is important. And then we've got our human needs as well. So physical, psychological and emotional, that all contribute to what we feel, what we are, what makes us happy, what fulfills us in life. And then we have our purpose. So the reason for being, the reason why something is done, the reason why something is important or has been created, or something that exists. The Japanese have their own name for it, the ikigai. It's our reason for being, our purpose. But in life, we also have our sense of purpose. And so as a community, we will have a purpose. The work that you do may give you a sense of purpose. So purpose quite often runs all the way through. So that's the theme this month. That's what we've been talking through. It's one of the things that I quite often help with coaching clients in working out what their values are, what their needs are, what is their purpose, what's important to them, why are these things important, is it helpful for these things to be important, or do we need to challenge some of the thinking or the beliefs behind this, some of the experiences that people have faced, and how that has shaped their values, their needs and their purpose as well. So it's what we've been looking at this month as a theme for Phoenix, and it's really started to kick in with things that have been going on in the world, and that's what a lot of the blog touches on. And so that's the other element that I wanted to talk through today. So when we look at things that are going on in the world at the moment, for the month of June 2020, we have had two key themes going on. The first one being COVID-19, and then the second one being the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, neither are new. One is certainly newer than the other, but certainly this month, so, June 2020, this has really come to the forefront. It's come to the forefront of conversations. It's come through to the forefront of how we are shaping our conversations, how we're shaping things that are happening for us, and how we are looking at the world at the moment. So let's talk about COVID-19 first. When this first kind of really came into play in the UK, I did a live talking about some of the things that I felt people needed to start reflecting on, starting to think about in terms of certainly the lockdown and some of the restrictions that were coming into place. One of the things that I think COVID has given us an opportunity for is to really sit back and evaluate and to reflect and review the things that are important to us. It's really forced or created space, depending on which way you want to look at it. It's really forced how we think about what is important, where are we putting our time, where are we putting our energy, where are we starting to think about what were we doing pre-COVID, pre-lockdown, where were we putting our time, where were we putting our energy, what was important to us in terms of our behaviour, not necessarily what we thought was important, not necessarily what we felt was important had somebody asked us, but actually what was our behaviour showing, where were we putting our time and our energy, and where were we, what were our behaviours telling us, not what our words were telling us, but what were our behaviours telling us. So when COVID came in, when lockdown started to happen, there were lots of conversations and certainly reflections in coaching sessions around actually people were re-evaluating where had they been putting their time. Did that reflect actually what is important to them? And was there an opportunity within what was happening to be able to reshape that, to rebalance what was happening? So that's certainly something that has been going on obviously since March for those of us in the UK. I know the timescales are slightly different for those of you in different parts of the world, but certainly that's something that has been coming up quite a lot in those coaching conversations, but also just general friends and family conversations as well around, what has been important to us, where have we been putting our energy, and actually in lockdown, where have we refocused that energy? And as we move into the new normal, a word that I've been using for a long time, but now seems to be very much in day-to-day conversation. But as we move into a new normal, what do we want? What do we want to keep hold of? What's been helpful to us? What's been useful to us? What's been positive that we want to carry forward into the new normal? And what hasn't been positive? What have we had that hasn't created that positivity? Maybe things that we do need to recheck the balance for, maybe things that we need to think about differently, maybe some old behaviours and habits that we want to leave behind as we move forward. So that's certainly something that has come up a lot for I think most people. I think that's a fairly generic response. We had things removed that we needs that we've had to find a way to meet those needs in different ways. When you look at some of the responses of things that have happened during COVID-19, we've seen people's values come to the surface. Not necessarily something people would talk about on a day-to-day basis, but we have seen people's judgment and perceptions of behaviour and decision-making really come to the forefront of people, the judgment of what's right and what's wrong, what's fair or what's unfair. So those conversations have really kind of shown and helped people to understand what's important to them, what those values are. So we have seen those differences in values. We've seen people assess what's important in different ways. Some people have had COVID impacted them in one way, and for other people that was not an issue. And for others, they have experienced COVID and been really challenged around certain things that for other people has not been an issue. So even within something that we are all experiencing together, we are all experiencing it in different ways, and a lot of that is shaped by our values and by our needs. That's why we have all been impacted in very different ways. So one of the things I talked about quite early on was there was lots of advice out there that certainly social media was rife with things that you should and could be doing during lockdown. But it's not a one size fits all, because we all have been experiencing this in different ways. So certainly from my point of view, people working through how to get through COVID and into the new normal has been about really reflecting and reviewing what that means to them as an individual. What does it mean to those people around them that are most important to them? And when they've been able to assess that, then we can start to look at what and how people want to move forward into the future. So, as I've talked about in the blog, a lot of the conversations have been about people starting to make more conscious decisions about what they want, certainly more purposeful conversations, purposeful decision making around what's important to them, what do they value, what do they need, how do they want to shape this new future that is coming. And it's going to take some time to shape that. As a world, it's going to take some time to shape that, but we can start to take control of that within our own homes, within our own kind of bubble environment, and then that will start to filter out. That will start to have that ripple effect as the world kind of starts to shape in what is different. And I'm not sure any of us really know what that is going to look like at the moment. A lot of that is not going to be in our individual control. However, there will be things that we can control. So we can certainly control our own headspace, and we can certainly control our own environment in the four walls that we are living in and with our family members. So I think that's really important. Start there. Start with what you want. Start with what's important to you. What do you value? What needs do you need to meet in this new normal? And how do you want to meet it with purpose? So that's the first thing. So COVID-19, how that has been impacting people. And so within that, over the last couple of weeks, we have had events in the world, or certainly events in America, that have started this ripple effect across the world around the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, the Black Lives Matter movement is not new. It's been around for some time. People have been campaigning hard for some time, but it has, from my perspective, not had this ripple effect across the world in quite the same way as the recent events over the last couple of weeks have had. And I think it's important that we all have this conversation. It's not going to be a comfortable one for many of us, but we do need to have this conversation. This is something that we need to reflect and review on, and how we can do that. Okay, so let's look at this from a value, needs and purpose perspective. So what is the value that sits in underneath this? What's the value, the golden thread that comes through this, of this movement? And this isn't about people taking a stand. This is now people about really starting to drive this forward for that momentum. This is a movement rather than what is being referred to as a stand. So what people are looking for, the value that this movement, and what for many of us recognise this to be, is the value of equality and equity for everybody. And for it to be truly for everybody, we need to support these groups of people who are not there yet. And they're not there yet for a number of reasons, which is a whole, this is not a 30-minute live, this is a whole historical debate and conversation that we need to educate ourselves on and understand how this is still the case, how this can still be that people who are Black are still really struggling, still suffering with this equality and equity. So that's the value, that's the golden thread that runs through it. When we look at the need, what's the need that is important to people here? What's the need that is essential? It's more than a want. This isn't a desirable, this is a need, a fundamental human need, that we start to make conscious changes in our system, in our laws, legislation, processes, procedures, whether you're looking at this from an organisational level, or whether you're looking at this at a national, global level of what we have in place, the systems that we have in place that do not give people that equal opportunity and that equal start. So, the need to make conscious changes to the system, but also for us as individuals to challenge and change the beliefs and the behaviours for both of us. For those of us as an individual, we need to reflect on that. We need to challenge ourselves to change our own personal beliefs and behaviours. But also as a collective society, we need to challenge and change those beliefs as a society. That means we are not treating people as equal humans. So that's the fundamental need of this movement, which is my perception, and from conversations with people, I perfectly accept that everybody has their own opinion on this, and that's absolutely fine. This is me speaking my opinion, my truth as I see it. Okay, so finally, let's look at it from a purpose perspective. What is the purpose here? So this is to create a future, but also the present. This is not a start. This is not a hashtag Start Monday. We need to start this now. We are already late, way late on this. We need to start this now. So this is about creating a present and a future where truly all lives matter. All lives. And so we need to make sure that the lives that are not being treated as equally at the moment, we need to make sure that we put in those changes to make sure that truly all lives matter. We need to make sure that skin colour is neither a privilege nor a disadvantage. And we need this world where people are judged on the content of character and not on the colour of their skin. And we are not there yet. So let's talk about this privilege. And this, again, is a very personal perception. But this privilege for some of us of just being able to close it down, some of this stuff is really hard to watch. It's painful to watch. The privilege is when we have that choice to just be able to shut the laptop, close the app. We don't have to see it. We can just close it down and move on with our day. We can just crack on with life. That is the privilege. There are a lot of people in this world who don't have that privilege. They don't have that option to just close it down. And the experiences of people are real. We need to be hearing, we need to be listening to these experiences. We need to be hearing people right now. Our thoughts and our opinions are really just that. They're thoughts and opinions based on what we've seen and what we've heard. But we need to be understanding and really hearing out what people's experiences are. People's experiences are valid and they are real. The fears that people have, they're real. They are very real to people, and we need to spend some time to really listen and hear people and hear people's experience. In the blog, I've talked about just some of the things that, the privilege means that we don't have to worry about. I've never had to go to work and be told that my natural curly hair is unprofessional. I know people who have. Your black hair in that style, in your natural style, is not professional. So you need to wear a wig or a weave to cover it up, to make it fit with what we feel looks professional. I've not been told that. Not natural hair. I have never been in a position where I've had to change my name, my birth name, the name that my parents chose for me, and change it to make it easier for people to say. I've never had to change it into a more, easy name for people to pronounce. I haven't had, I've never had to say to people, don't worry about how to pronounce it. Now, there was a time where I had a different surname and I had a little bit of an insight into some of the things that people experience when their name is not nice and easy, roll off the tongue British names. I've had some insight into it. And you have to, when you have to dismiss part of your identity to make it easier for other people, that can't be right. It's really not that hard to ask somebody how to pronounce it. We can do better. I've never had to carry my car documents. I've never had to worry about some of the things that people worry about. I just trying to find some of the examples that I've talked in. There are so many examples. You only need to spend 5 minutes with somebody of colour to understand some of the things that they experience, and they are real, valid experiences, and we need to be hearing these out. So I've lost my train of thought. Purpose, privilege, we have to understand what that means. But I think also more importantly, we have to understand how we can use that to help. How can we help other people by where we are now? How can we use this? Now, the conversation I had with my son when all of this first started to happen, and I said, for me, it's like relating it back to when I worked in an organisation where women were not represented at some of the top leadership levels. And for me, being a female leader in that organisation, part of what I felt was my responsibility was to send the lift back down and help other people up. Just play my part in, I'd got myself to that position, but I had people help me get to that position. I had people's help and support and mentorship and guidance. So my responsibility was to do that for other people. And that's what we should all be doing as humans. We should all be using where we have that privilege, where we've had those experiences to be able to support and guide other people. That is really, really important. And that's where we can start using this privilege to be able to support the movement so that everybody has the same opportunities and the same equality that we don't even question, this equality and equity that we don't even think about half of the time. So when I say this, I'm not saying that we are not sympathetic or empathetic. This is not an accusation or a label that we, as a society of white people are actively racist. This is not an accusation for people. This is not a poke and a prod to make accusations. Many white people are sympathetic, empathetic, and supportive. But it's not enough. We need to do more, and I accept that whilst I have, with pride, called myself an ally up until now, I accept that I also have not done enough, and there is more that I can do to speak up and support and help people and help this move on and make sure that we, my son and potentially future grandchildren, have a world where everybody is treated as equal. So this doesn't mean that you haven't been sympathetic. It doesn't mean that you haven't been empathetic. This is about recognizing what more you can do to help make these changes, and it does need to change. So the question now is what are we going to do about it? What can we do to help? Being aware that racism exists is no longer enough. We all have to step forward and start to play our part in making sure that it doesn't exist in the future for our future generations. So the world needs to change, but the change doesn't happen without disruption. We all have to start to challenge and disrupt our way of thinking, and we all have that responsibility to disrupt our way of thinking and start to challenge what we think, what we do, and be part of that wider change. We all have that responsibility to step forward and support and do our bit, and that will be different for different people. Fully accept different people will feel comfortable with different actions action, but we can all take some level of action. And even if that is just challenging our own beliefs, our own perceptions, and our own way that we view the world. So we can all be part of it, and it's not going to be comfortable. I know that I have felt uncomfortable in the last couple of weeks where I have had to challenge some of my perceptions and some of my beliefs around this, and also just my lack of knowledge and my lack of education on some of the history that sits in behind this. I know that jokes have been made that the taking down of a statue has actually educated so many of us in Bristol about the history behind that person and the role that they played in the slave trade. I didn't know all of that. And I'm Bristol born and bred. So, that's not comfortable. That is not comfortable to say that you have lived in a city and you don't know the full history of that city. But that's because there is a system in place that is very careful and very selective about what we've learned. So we have to challenge that. That's some of the things that we need to start doing, but it's not comfortable. Change is not comfortable. And one of the things that I've put in the blog is the change curve, because I think it helps us to understand why so many of us are in a different place at the moment with these changes that are happening. So whether you're looking at COVID-19 changes, whether you're looking at the Black Lives Matter movement changes, when you look at the change curve, you can see that there are some people who are really out there, who have known this has been a problem, who have been living with this problem since birth, since day one. So they are in a different place. To others who are in denial that there is even a problem, so that lack of understanding, that lack of knowledge, or maybe just because it's so uncomfortable to accept that problem is there and that change needs to happen. So there are some people who are in shock. Everything is out there on social media. To see videos, really just to see videos of people's lives being taken, shock, confusion, fear, anger, frustration, that is all there, and we're all responding to it and feeling it in different ways because of our own experiences, because of our feelings and beliefs that are already there. So for some of us, it's really challenged those existing beliefs. So that creates some confusion of, well, I always thought this and now I'm starting to question it, and for other people, this is like, oh my God, how did you not see this was happening? We've been telling you this for years, so there's that frustration and that anger and, of trying to make these changes for so long, and now suddenly it's like the rest of the world is waking up to it a little bit. When we look at the change curve, we can see that people are in different places. Some people are fighting for the new normal, they are already there, and others are still very much to that left acceptance stage of the change curve. Some of us are still trying to work it all out, and some of us are just trying to look at what needs to happen to drive this change forward. So we are all in different places for it. We need to be respectful of how people feel. We need to be respectful that people will feel differently about this. And that's okay. It's okay for people to have different responses and different reactions to this. We have to be respectful of that. We have to be respectful that some people will feel angry about this, that some people will be hurt and upset and frustrated. And so we need to be respectful that different people will feel different things at different times. And actually, we are going to have differences of opinion. We are all going to see this from a different viewpoint, from a different perspective. We're all going to see this in a different way. And whilst we need to listen and understand other people's viewpoints, we can do that with kindness. We can do that with respect. We can have differences of opinion with respect. We can hear people out. We can listen to other people's points of view and listen to their experiences and try and understand why they might see things in a different way to how we see it and how we've always seen it. It's okay to sit down and listen to why people have a different point of view. This is not about trying to force other people to change what their point of view is, but it's about helping people to it's that education and understanding to help people see that there are differences there and why those differences exist. So listening to other people's point of view doesn't mean that we have to tolerate or accept hateful words or abuse, or certainly some of the things that you see people write. And we can sit and we can hear other people's experiences without hateful language and without being unkind. You know, we can be kind in all of this. We can understand and we can learn and we can educate ourselves and each other with kindness. This really shouldn't be open for debate. So we all have our beliefs, we all have our opinions. There's no change in that. We all have existing points of view, opinions and beliefs. However, we could be open to hearing that other beliefs and opinions and points of view exist. We can be open to listening to other people and listening and hearing other people out. And especially if these are the people who have been victims in this, we need to hear them. We need to hear them and accept their experiences and how it felt for them. It is not for us to challenge how somebody feels about it when they are the one that's experiencing it. We can hold our own beliefs, we can hold our own viewpoints, but that doesn't override a lived experience. Okay, that's what we need to be listening to. So listen with an open mind, listen with an intention to learn and an intention to understand. We have to let our ego go with this. We have to put aside the need to know more, or the need to be right, or the need to have a kind of strong opinion on this. We need to go into these conversations with that open mind and a willingness to learn and understand. We have to let that go in order to understand and empathise. So I quite often talk about being a critical thinker. I often talk about that from a perspective of challenging your own thoughts and beliefs when they hold you back. So your self-limiting beliefs. I talk about that a lot, but right now we need to be looking at our beliefs, our thoughts, our opinions that are impacting how we see the world. You know, we possibly have a tunnel vision and we're not seeing the world through different viewpoints and from different perspectives. So we need to start to challenge and being our own critical thinker in those beliefs that we hold, and just really challenging some of our unconscious and implicit bias. You know, we need to start looking at, okay, what's informing these beliefs? You know, how did we get to this? How did we get to holding this belief and this opinion and this thought? How does this affect how we see the world? And how does this affect how we see people? How does this affect how we see individuals? Have we got beliefs that are grouping together, you know, how we see a group of people based on part of their identity? Are we really looking past that and seeing people as individuals? Are we spending time with people who are different? How are we educating ourselves in this? So those are the three questions really. You know, how are you educating yourself? How are you finding out why people hold certain beliefs that may be different to yours? Research it, look it up. There is so much information out there, but look at it from both sides. Okay, when you're looking to challenge that belief, look at it from both viewpoints, or from a variety of different viewpoints if that's the case. Educate. Expose yourself to people with different experiences and views. It is natural that we, you know, birds of a feather flock together. It is natural that we find people who look like us, sound like us, think like us, behave like us. But part of the beauty of this world is the diversity, is spending time with people who've had different experiences, who see the world differently. So expose yourself to people with different experiences. There's a great quote, isn't there, that I can't remember who said it. I got a funny feeling it's Lincoln, but I'll check it and post it, where it says, "I do not like that man, I must get to know him." And I think we can be very closed-minded. We can close ourselves off to, actually challenging that perception, challenging that thought that we've had. So educate yourself and expose yourself to people who are different, and then empathize. Really try and understand where people are coming from with these differences, with their experiences, why they might feel the way they feel based on their experiences. Now, you can't live that experience, you can't experience it for yourself, but you can listen to it and you can understand it, and you can try and see what that might feel like if you were put into that position, and how you might see the world differently if you had shared those lived experiences. I watched a YouTube TED Talks, I think, last week, and the lady talked about a quote. It's a word called, and I'm sure somebody may help me with the pronunciation, but I think it's pronounced Ubuntu. It's an Afrikaans word, and it's to do with the interconnectedness, compassion and humanity. And the quote that she read out was, "I am who I am because of who we all are." I am who I am because of who we all are. We are who we are because of who I am. And I think that's really powerful. I think, we are all here. Nobody's going anywhere. We are all here to live together. And I think the more we understand who we are sharing our world with, the more we can be connected. So it's a heavy subject today, but it's so important. It's important to talk about. It's been important for me to understand it, and to understand it, what it means for me, what it means for my son, what it means for me as a business, how I can do my bit through coaching, how I can understand it for the people who I coach, who are experiencing this and who are impacted by this. And I talk about COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement in that statement. I have to understand it to a point so that I can support the people who I work with, but also who I live with and who I care for. So I've spent a lot of time reflecting over the last couple of weeks what part I play in that. And it is important. I am by no means a subject matter expert on this, but I have a voice, and I have a platform, and I have a responsibility. So my question to you really is, what's your voice and what's your responsibility in all of this, in how we can move the world forward to make it a better place. Thank you for your time. I am going to come back to this and pick up on comments and any questions that come through. Appreciate it's a long live, but I do appreciate your time and for listening, but I will pick up any comments and any questions. My messages are open for anybody who wants to speak about this offline. I'd be more than happy to listen to what you have to say and to have that conversation with you. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day, and I will speak to you all very soon.